Hello and welcome today to a Kerfuffle interview with a key influencer, if not one of the key influencers within this industry. I am delighted to have on Nathan Emerson of Property Mark. How the devil are you, Mr. Emerson?
Very well, Mr. Whale. Very well indeed. Thank you very much.
You're looking resplendently. You're looking resplendently organised with the required. As a techie, of course, I'm looking at all your gear, just going, yeah, nice.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable, isn't it? So
It is a remarkable.
There we go.
I'm not plugging it, but it is pretty remarkable. There you
go. Oh God! You've always known a soundbite, but we'll get on to that anyway. That's good. Well, first of all, Nathan, congratulations. Obviously, there you were appointed interim CEO of Property Mark. What it must seem like about many years ago now to you, doesn't it?
It does. I've aged about 15 years, Simon. But no, it is a blizzard of activity, absolutely, and certainly one to get the adrenaline rush going. Let's put it that way.
Well, that's great, and we need that in these times of still in lockdown. Could you just give me an idea, Nathan? I want to just get an idea, just setting the scene for this going ahead. I want to talk about obviously a little bit about your good self. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time, but I want to understand what you want to achieve in your role and what you think, Property Mark is there to do. So could you just at a top level kind of just describe to me what you think your vision is for Property Mark?
Yeah, I think actually my vision for Property Mark is more about not only engaging probably more with members and understanding more and delivering more to what members want, but equally continuing to be there as the soundbite for the industry as a whole. We have a lot of work has been done, and I'm going to hold my hands up now and say a lot of what we've done hasn't actually been spoken and communicated to people. I think that is our fault to that degree, really. When you actually step inside and you see what's done, it blows even my mind away. Of the complexities and things the organisation does, and because it does them so regularly and so quickly, it doesn't actually take time to stop and say this is what we've done. And I think people sit at home sometimes and think, well, what have Property Mark done? I haven't heard this or I haven't heard that. And I think that I have to hold my hands up on that. I think if we're guilty of anything, it's not communicating as well as we should do about some of the things that we do that either directly benefit members but also benefit the industry as a whole, really, Simon, to be fair. And from that point, one of the first things I have looked to do with support from the board is to increase the size of the comms team. We're working very hard on that, and we're looking to increase that ability so we can actually rather than just run the route, the standardized marketing and communication that we do, actually build in an element where we can be more reactive, because I think that's what people want to know. They want to see and hear things that we're doing a bit more, and the day-to-day churn takes that department up to capacity at the moment. And so all the extra stuff we do doesn't get a chance to get fed in, and I need to resolve that. I think
that's right, because they're looking to you. They are looking to you for leadership, aren't you, on a variety of different things, responses to industry issues, everything else. When something happens, and it's quite right, isn't it? It's a wonderful part of that responsibility is, okay, well, what's our guiding body telling us we should be up to?
Absolutely. And I think, we are an organisation which naturally, when you are this type of organisation, you can be there, that people will support you and other people will be detractors. And very often those detractors will do it for their own benefits. But, at the end of the day, somebody, has to stand there and do that. And we do that. We benefit members, and we do benefit non-members as well. Raising standards is what we're all about. And if you look at the trajectory of where our industry is now compared to where it used to be, I won't go on to Roper, but we all know that's on the horizon. And it's you listen to the pride from even people who are non-members. I pick the phone up to this is an industry which is actually inherently proud of itself, and I think sometimes the public perception of this industry isn't as we see it on the inside, and lots of little voices can have a soundbite, but you actually need support from that just as much as we need support externally. So it's a team effort from everybody really to let the world know how good this industry really is.
And it's really important. I know it's a charity keen to your heart as well, Agents Giving. It's exactly the same, isn't it? There's loads of great work that goes on. You know, agents do almost more than anyone in their local communities, but it does get watered down because, as we know, what is it, 70 or 80% of the industry is 1 and 2 office agencies. So it kind of just, I know it gets noticed by the local community, but overall we don't get this halo effect, do we? And what it sounds like you're talking about there is actually not just from a charitable endeavor, but actually from all the other great stuff that, you know, that they're just doing from an industry point of view needs to be recognized as well.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you there, Simon.
Cool. So, and I think that's really important what you said in terms of, yeah, it's almost, and it's frustrating, isn't it? But in this day and age where, you know, we're fighting for attention all the time to be noticed there, it's almost like if you could be doing loads of good work, but if you aren't just being, and it's not about bragging about it, isn't it? But just saying, look, you're a big fan of Nighty as well. I know, going to many events over the years. He always makes that point, making the invisible visible, doesn't it? And that, it strikes me as an outsider, and I recognise I'm an outsider in many different ways, but that would be your greatest challenge, isn't it? Because clearly you have a lot going on, but it needs to be communicated, not just with the members, but externally.
Absolutely. You know, and I since I came into role, I sporadically picked the phone up to people directly myself, and you know, from various mediums. And actually, when you talk to people and you start having conversations, and they start to realise, it's amazing how even people that have seen you in a certain light all of a sudden go, oh, I didn't realise that. Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
And that alone tells me, and some of these people will have been detractors of Property Mark, you know, will have made comments in the press. And actually, when you picked up the phone to them, and, oh, hello, I'm Nathan. But then you have that conversation with them. Oh, right. Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh, you know, and that actually, I look at that and I think, well, that's up to us to actually try and communicate that better. And let's be honest with you, we are in the industry of a communication game, you know, and we do communicate a phenomenal amount, but we need to communicate more.
How do you, I mean, one of the key elements that you obviously do are fighting the industry's interests. How do you, our friend David Mintz sits on the podcast, and one of the things that he's kind of critiqued about Property Mark, you know, is said that he just doesn't understand how you can stay on the one hand fighting for the interests of the agents themselves, and at the same time keep having the conversations with those people in power in government, because it's very difficult, isn't it? Is if you start talking about things before it's right to be spoken about, quite, you know, you're seen as a leak, and clearly governments aren't going to want to play ball with you. On the other hand, it's almost like you can wait too long, and then it's kind of, well, that's already been announced. So it's a really difficult balancing act, that, isn't it?
It is, and that actually is you're absolutely right. It is a balancing act. So I think, again, we have to be choosy about what we can and can't say about that. That's a natural thing, but let's look at it from this point of view. You know, if you are sat there, you're creating legislation or whatever, you need to reach out to people to give you guidance. And we are not the only stakeholder in the marketplace. Let's be honest about that. You know, there are various other bodies that sit within the industry, where our members are also members of theirs, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I'm not sitting in the Property Mark as the overarching body of the lot. It's not. It is another voice, and a fairly substantial voice that does sit there along with others, that feeds into that environment. But if we don't engage, what actually happens is, very often the view that can come out might not necessarily be something that works in the cold face. So you'll remember that from your PropTech days, still PropTech days. So, you know, you can sit there and you can come up with an idea and think that will work brilliantly, and then you reach out to the industry and you realize that great idea you had in real practice wouldn't work.
Absolutely.
You know, and I remember, you know, several demos where we've looked at different products in the past where you thought that might bolt on, and actually it didn't. And from the outside, our industry does appear like that. And, you know, and you often find once you're in it and you understand how it works day to day, that's very different than it appears on the outside. And so actually being able to give that clarity, and also having the depth of different people externally for people to be able, for, you know, decision makers to be able to reach out to, and take scope of that, makes a big difference. And a prime example of that, and I'm moving it from legislation to prop tech, but just recently we engage an awful lot with a lot of prop tech startups through Reach and Land Registry's Geovation project. And you look at some phenomenal ideas coming on there, but if they went out in their raw format into the marketplace, they would not necessarily work. And actually, to be able to put big working groups together, it's not my word, it's working groups of people together to help these people develop things that will integrate correctly, that will be of benefit, not just to us, but the consumers as well.
Yes.
That work is done, and nobody charges for that. That is work that's done to help to make sure that we've got things coming into the marketplace that work for the consumer, that work for the agent, that work for the existing solutions that are out there at the moment. And things like that are a tremendous benefit.
Cool. Okay, well, let's talk about, and like with all this, Nathan, it's a bit unfair when I'm asking you these questions, what you've done, what they've done right, what they've done wrong, because you've obviously only been in the seat a matter of weeks, even though it seems like more. But I think it's important because you will have had to have that period of retrospection, wouldn't you, where you've obviously looked at what you think. Well, I'll just ask you outright. What do you think Property Mark has done well, has done right? And then the follow on from that, apart from the communication piece, what do you think they maybe could have done better?
I think as a foundation stone, I think Property Mark is there strong. You look at its constituents of ALA, NAA, obviously ICBA, we've got the auction side of things, NAVA, and we've got the inventory side of things. So we have a splay that covers across the marketplace. And each of these different areas actually has different requirements that it needs. And so as an organisation, to be able to communicate each of those different facets, I think is absolutely amazing, because what you have got is different facets have different points of view. But bearing in mind nowadays, people aren't just the letting agent, they're not just the selling agent. Most agencies will cover multiple disciplines. So actually to have that all within one home, I think is superb, and it gives weight of numbers and it gives a true voice. And I think that side of things, I think we do well. I'd like that to do better. I'd like to increase membership. I want to increase the level of professionalism that's out there at the moment. And that's not to say we haven't got a good level of professionalism. I think we have. But if you look at real-time examples, and bear in mind people's memberships will be £250, £300 for a membership. The tools that we've put back into the industry, both for our actual members, but also the industry as a whole. There are several examples, but let me pick the big hitter. We've just been through the coronavirus process, and every single estate agency out there with an office has benefited from business rates relief. That came purely through our workings with government. We weren't even on that. We weren't even on the agenda to have that. We weren't on the agenda to have the grants. That was direct intervention that actually gave us a voice in that arena. That benefited, at last calculation, £210 million.
Wow.
Our industry benefited as a result of those representations, and we were the only people able to get those reputations. Imagine everything else going on at the time. The government was a very busy place. The last thing they were thinking about is poor old estate agents who obviously aren't poor. So we, and also in a marketplace that was continuing to trade as well. But that actually, for some companies, actually made a phenomenal difference as to whether or not they could see their way through it, because not everybody had the tech.
So if I understand that right, Nathan, what you're saying there is obviously when the rates relief and things like that, the agents weren't going to be included in that, basically.
Absolutely right. Yeah, absolutely.
So you got wind that was the case as an organisation, and started those representatives to say, hang on a minute. We have a huge membership base who are going to be decimated if you don't go down this route. And basically those representations, as you talk about, ensured the agency was included in that, and everybody, not just Property Mark members, benefited.
Correct. Absolutely right. When you look at things like that, and that's, that comes from having years working within government to have the contacts when, you need to represent something that won't necessarily have occurred at that level, and make a difference. And if you bear in mind the average saving, and some people have saved tens of thousands of pounds as a result of this, and you take that back to your average membership at £250, £300, it makes a big difference. You look at things that we've introduced to see people through the coronavirus. You look at the legal helpline that we've put in place. members can ring that for free. And, if you bear in mind the hourly cost of a solicitor at the other end, it doesn't take very long to work out that one membership fee goes very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So we have pumped phenomenal, I won't even tell you the figures, we have pumped phenomenal amounts into that. And it's almost been like a tsunami tidal wave. I mean, the phone lines couldn't actually cope with the volume of inquiries that were coming through, and people were having to wait just inordinate amount of time to even get through. But the legal helpline was there, the HR helpline was there, all of these things that have been in place to make sure that the individuals have the answers they need, to make sure that companies have the support that they need in order to get themselves through. That's something that we've done. Look at the webinars we did when everything first went into lockdown, and I took place on some of those myself, and the comments that came back from people who genuinely were struggling as to what to do, how to sort my company out, how to structure my staff, how do I get the IT infrastructure in place. Everybody forget, those. And the webinars, we opened those up, and the percentage of non-members on there, which I won't quote because I haven't got the exact numbers, but the percentage of non-members on there that took part in those was phenomenal, and that's just something that was given away to the industry as we went through the process. Webinars, fact sheets went out. It was there when it was needed. Yeah. Along with other organisations, we all stepped up to the plate to make sure that there was the facility there for members, obviously, and the facility there for non-members, and working with then the members afterwards, we were able to then to keep giving them additional support and information all the way through.
And that's, as you said, it's phenomenally expensive to provide resources like that. So the only way that can work is if you get the support of the industry in numbers as well to pay what is, what I was trying to do in my head there, what the ROI was. Just in that example, but it's absolutely marked, isn't it? Because imagine, Nate, if I was coming to sell you this, as I have many times over the years, trying to missell you stuff, if I was coming to you, I would have used the lazy, you just need one more listing to pay for your Property Mark membership. But you're delivering many times over just with one tangible bit of advice and lobbying you achieved there.
Absolutely. And listen, at the end of the day, nearly everybody you speak to and you deal with in this industry, for the main part, are committed professionals that want to go to the next level. Not everybody is a member of Property Mark. We would love them to be a member, and it's not until you actually get inside and we have some of the regional representatives we have and regional executives we have. They are so committed, but they actually get to see what's happening on the inside, and once they get involved in that, they start to realise what's going on with Property Mark, and that's another area I'm working on at the minute to help the regional representatives have more ability to communicate with members out there, and also for the members to be able to communicate to us better. There'll be I want to open the transparency, I want to open the communication lines. I am looking at, we're working through the final stages at the moment of putting in a dedicated customer services area where when people ring in straight away, they get to the right people that can talk the right language, that have the right answers to the questions. So we can, looking at phone calls at the minute, I want to make those more responsive. I want to make the communication side of things more responsive. And that's a massive piece of work to do. But I want people to be able to ring in, pick up the phone, and know there's an answer at the end of the phone that people can help with whatever they need to help with, and be that fourth emergency service, really.
That's a great shout and a lovely little label, that, isn't it, to get them thinking about that in terms of there. So that's so Nate, what sort of, again, I've known you for years. What sort of leader are you and intend to be at Property Mark? Are you going to be consultative? Are you going to be dictatorial? Are you going to be like myself, mental? What's your vision on leadership, and how do you want to take people with you?
I think leadership has to adapt to the requirements at the time, Simon. So I think all of the above in different mixes as required. I mean, so I looked at, when I've stepped into this, obviously on an interim basis, and I said, for me, there were at this time Property Mark, and I think the industry itself needed to see three things: reputation, stability, and results. And so I think that type of leadership at the moment is what's required, and that's where I'm going with it. Really, I'm looking to plateau out any reputational issues from an industry point of view, from our point of view, and I'm not admitting there are any, but I think people want to see that stability there. Really, they want to see things calm down and actually start going forward and focusing on the things that are done right. And actually, I want engagement from everybody. The more people that get involved,
Yeah.
the more people that actually stand up and become counted. Let's not have negativism out there. Let's get in and let's all try and work to go forward together, because that ultimately is where we all are. And if we all get involved, then the results will take care of themselves. It's always been the same. If you do the groundwork right, the results will take care of themselves, and I want the results to take care of themselves.
And that doesn't mean at all, does it, that you can't still have full and honest conversations, debates, and everything else there? That's just about, what I guess you're getting frustrated, you would get frustrated on, which anyone would, is people taking pots from the outside without getting involved. It's like you can't critique, can you, or be fairly critiquing if you're not going to be part of the solution.
Correct, absolutely. It's almost like a bottle of wine. I don't like the colour of the wine, therefore that's a horrible wine. And actually, you poured it and tasted it, and have you tasted it when it's warm, or have you tasted it when it's cold? So very often people haven't had that taste, and people haven't tried it and experienced it enough to be able to give an honest opinion. And actually, let's be honest, if you get a nice bottle of wine and you enjoy a bottle of wine, you'll then spread it to more people, and it's very easy to say, I don't like that bottle of White Tower, or people become subjective. And also, let's not forget that actually sometimes by focusing in on things in that way, you can also detract people from other things. And as individuals, we all want to do the very best we can do for what we do every single day within this industry. We're all passionate about it. We wouldn't be in it if we weren't. And I'm definitely passionate about it, and I want to see standards improve. I want people to have the help and support that they need in order to get there, and I want to do the best I can do to try and help us be there for people when they need it.
Yeah, that really works for me in terms of there. And so, look, just to be a kind of property paxman, and this is my only tough one, is what you've been appointed interim. Do you have aspirations for going permanent, or would you have to kill me if you told me?
I went into this on the basis, obviously, as you know yourself, company change and growth is very much what I do as a specialty. Yep. The same skill set that we would use out in the field with estate agencies, the same skill set falls within Arvin House. And I want to keep my focus in today. And the danger you can sometimes find is when people are set, in a permanent scenario, is timescales can slip. The urgency to get jobs done doesn't happen. It's like running around to get the kids ready in the morning for school. If you've got to get the kids to school, you'll get a million jobs done. Those mums out there that do that, fantastic. If they've not got the kids to go to school, those same jobs will take all day. So I think the focus has to be today. The focus has to be now, and it has to be day at a time. Just keep working through. Obviously, I've got short, medium, and long-term plans for where the organisation is. It's my job to set those foundations, work with people, and be communicative, listen to what people want, and set the direction for Property Mark, really. And that's my focus at this moment in time.
That's really useful to understand. And when will we be able to talk to you? Obviously, you've only got your feet, I keep making the point, under the desk at the moment. But when will you be communicating those aspirations and goals in that very concise, my plan for 6 months, my plan for 2 years is X, Y, Z, and when could we expect to hear those, if that is on the table for being?
Yeah, very much so. And I think it's not my plan, it's the organisation's plan. My job, obviously, working with the board, is to, obviously, the board have a strategy. My job now is to ensure that strategy is delivered. Which I will work to do. Will I be communicating on this? Absolutely, I will be. And funnily enough, I was sat penning some of that stuff this morning at the bright and early hours. So I don't want to fall in the trap where I'm so focused in on what I'm doing, I'm forgetting to tell everybody else what's going on, because that does.
Well, that was your initial.
It's a problem, correct. So, but what I won't do equally is just communicate for the sake of communicating, really, because people are busy. People have a million emails coming through. So, I would rather summarise, demonstrate, and move on to the next thing, and just keep that communication flow going than just fire out there for the sake of firing out there. Really, we're busy people. People want me to deliver, and equally, they need time to deliver in their own businesses as well.
Well, I think you just on a couple of points there. We asked you there, and look, you are by definition. I've been lucky enough to work on a couple of projects with you, and you are consultative, and you are adaptable, aren't you? And that strikes me that it is right person, right time. That's what the organisation needs to be looking at now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think yeah, you have to be flexible. Let's be honest with you. In today's entire working environment, things are a lot faster paced than they used to be 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
We are bouncing between different pieces of technology. There's something going on here. There's something going on here, here. There are so many things going on, and certainly even when I stepped into this role, I joked it was like stepping into a blizzard. But there is so much going on in our industry day to day. And everybody is a part of that in different places. Nobody sees the whole picture. And the guy that sat down here doesn't know what's going on over here. I think we also we need to join those dots a little bit more as well.
So from my ivory prop tech tower, all this agency stuff is really interesting. But what about those industry suppliers that you quite rightly obviously highlighted are an intrinsic part of this? Does Property Mark have a part to play with that element of the industry as well? Is that something that you feel that Property Mark can and should be doing more to help agents with their choices?
I think our job, people have to make their own choice at the end of the day. Always, and let's be honest, it's not for me or you or anybody else for us to be able to, because different people have a different requirement depending on how they all run their own companies. And so if you say this is what you need, but actually they don't, they need that, then you give them that's not going to help matters really. I think where we do come in is and we probably ought to probably do a little bit more of really is enabling people to know what else is out there, probably like you've done really. Your whole mission in Kerfuffle is to make people aware what's out there, which is fantastic. You're also giving the feedback from different people, which enables people to make informed decisions, really. Our part in the process for a lot of that project actually has been at the beginning of the journey with obviously Reach and Geovation, as I mentioned. And it's at what point do you have to withdraw from that, really? Obviously, we have regional meetings, we have regional conferences, we have national conferences, and we make it as available for everybody and inclusive as we can do, to get as many people to these events so that people have an informed decision and they have an informed choice.
And that's going to be really important going forwards, Nathan. I mean, I know we're obviously all, still locked down and everything else, but those, again, I've been lucky enough to come to some of those and to have that support. These are keys. To have the suppliers talking about from a transparent point of view how it can help does make a difference, isn't there? Because you have got their eyeballs. You've got their focus for the time they're at that conference, and it's an important part for many people to learn about.
Absolutely, and let's be honest, if you go to conferences with the right attitude, the amount you can come away, the take home you come away with it's a pamphlet, it isn't a fancy bag, it's not a little squidgy toy. That might be a squidgy toy, but it is actually the knowledge that you gain, not just from the people that are there presenting and shows, but it's actually the day-to-day chatter with other people that are delegates there. Right. And I've never once not come away from a conference thinking, oh, why didn't I miss that? Oh, there's an opportunity there. And so from a business point of view, that interaction is something I think the industry has missed quite a lot with obviously the lockdown, and we've all managed to make things work. And will it go back the way that it used to do? Probably not. But I do think that there is a place for that interaction, and I think the industry sorely missed it, because we are a very personal industry. We do like to talk, we do like to communicate, and the ideas that are shared at these environments are priceless. And I think if you just go to a conference not looking to take anything away from it, then you're poorer for it. I think if you go there with the right attitude, even the webinars that people have done phenomenal work to put on, we go on about, we mentioned Peter Knight earlier on, groundbreaking stuff on the internet last year. The Esther's had a go at it, Simon Brown. It's a very difficult medium to do, and hats off to those guys for having a go at that, really. And we're all learning, we're all adapting. I think it'll end up being a mixed bag at the end.
It will be a hybrid, won't it? It really,
will.
it's inevitable that that's the. And again, look, we were looking at loads of things, trying to do more on a digital platform, and like everyone says, it's just hastened that change. And I think we're going to come out the better. That there's going to be a really nice model that uses the best of, yes, we love to get together when we all can, but also supporting those events digitally with resources and the ability to catch up on those if you missed a bit and things, I think is great. And Nate, you spoke about there, one of the things I want to get across is you have very close relationships with the likes of the bodies, sister bodies across the world. So NAR, for example, in the States. And sometimes that it looks like a bit of an old boys network, so, sometimes, but there's some real benefits that have actually come out of that, exploring it. So you've mentioned it a couple of times there. Would you just explain to anyone one of the real tangibles there, which I understand is the REACH program from NAR, which is, but obviously from my point of view, we're aligned on so many points. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, so you look at REACH, and so they're American version of our property mark, for example. They invest heavily in new prop tech and so on and so forth. And if you look at the old boys club comments that people make, nearly every single person out there at the moment is using DocuSign. DocuSign was from REACH, NAR. They did DocuSign. They pumped it out there. We're all using it every single day of the week, and that through that they then started getting involved and more. And obviously that that plows the money through. Obviously, Active Pipe. Obviously, I remember you yourself. REACH has been fundamental behind a lot. They've just done their latest cohort, so they take companies that are already operating and they give them steroids effectively to go out there and take themselves to the next level. And obviously, there are some great companies going through there at the moment. And obviously then you've also got the Geovation point of view, which is Land Registry and all their open source data. They're feeding things through into there. We're a great supporter of that. And that is the core prop tech. That is tomorrow's. I know I'm a train spotter again, Nate, but that Geovation, again, I'm sure 90% of agents wouldn't know about it, but the support that goes into that, nurturing in the right way, and what's agents' frustration, isn't it? I've laughed about it. It's the fact that sometimes they're so disconnected. They've got technical ideas, they're solving problems that don't exist. What Geovation is about is giving people the right funding and ability to actually develop ideas, but crucially as well, giving them a steer that if they've got some batshit mental idea, that they are going down the wrong track, and to pivot and change that so that they're actually delivering for agents. That's absolutely right. I mean, I've done quite a bit with Geovation over the years, and
great.
I think it's a fabulous incubator really, and it's things like that you get involved in, and you do work in, which is one of those discernible things where people don't necessarily see the benefits to the industry initially, but they do come out later on.
But it's R&D, Nate, isn't it? It's like everything, if you don't have R&D there, then what frustrates me is that there's often a load of cheap hand grenades thrown at this industry. Oh, agents are so far behind the curve. How many times have you heard another bloody tech company promising disruption because of? And actually, it's just not true on loads of levels. Sometimes agents can be absolutely on the ball, ahead of the curve in terms of utilizing technology for the right purpose.
One thing I would say, and let's put this into it, don't underestimate our industry for responsiveness and adaptiveness. Most people, last March were sat there with absolutely no expectations. They'd be completely reframed in their business, working from home and doing everything on Zoom. If you'd asked me in January last year to jump on a Zoom call, the first thing I'd have done is pick my phone up. Now, all of a sudden, the first thing I think of is jumping on a Zoom or a Teams or something like that. We have got one of the most adaptable industries out there. The practitioners in there are very creative, and that's in a positive way. If we could harness more of that and tap it and focus it, in a unified direction, that's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
It is. And Nathan, we talk about events there, and so I'll remind you back to one little one we went to a few years ago, ARIC in Australia. Obviously, we did almost like a road tour there to look at. They were wonderfully welcoming, the agents there. People like Cobden Ace and McGrath, Marshall White, these absolute powerhouse industries. What did you take from that? From that, in terms of, you know, I mean, obviously they've got, first of all, they've got a system that works in terms of time to sell and everything else. But
Yeah.
you know, you've always had that ability to look outside of, you know, our own narrow industry, haven't we? What do you? Is there stuff you can learn from others?
Absolutely. I mean, actually, to be fair, a lot of the drive I have on transparency, that's been pretty important part for me for a long time now. Very much came from them. I mean, they say it how it is. They're not bothered really. And equally, they will talk to competitors. They will share ideas. They will seek to try and raise the game really, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I think that's happening here more and more. I mean, I obviously, as you know yourself, I do the Aspire groups and things like that. And you get a lot of cohesion between those where people communicate and share ideas, and get it at regional conferences much more than you would have done 10, 15 years ago.
I agree.
Still a long way to go. We can be very protectionist sometimes still, and I think, we have come a long way. I would love to see us take that next step, and that is a leap of faith. There is a bit of trust involved there, but actually, if you're doing your job properly and you're studious about what you do and you take it seriously, the end benefit of all of this ends up being the consumer, and the business takes care of itself. If you do the job right and you stick to the basics and you don't get carried away airy fairy, the reality is that our industry offers a very, very good platform for people to not only operate in but run successful businesses in, and also, let's be honest, customer service now, client care is now at a level where it never used to be. We're a lot higher. We've raised the game. Again, it's that next step, really, Simon. Where could we really go with it, really? The whole industry should be proud of its reputation that it's got now compared to the headlines we used to get. And I think that's a collective will. Let's just keep on with it, really.
Yeah, and continuing things like Roper and everything else. But you've said it a couple of times, which stands out for me, is that yes, whilst your members are the agents themselves, it's the consumer ultimately that will define the success, really, won't it, there, of an organisation? And you won't go far wrong if you can remember about delivering for them, that actually the halo effect all round is going to be beneficial.
Correct. And I think, member sentiment is something I'm quite, keen on, really. And I think, you look at some of the tools that are coming into the marketplace now, where it's not just about how many reviews have you got and what star rating. It is, what is the actual sentiment behind that? It's not that. It's more about the written content. What were people's experiences? That's what people buy. And I think the more you start understanding that, the more you can start saying to yourself, well, hang on a minute, we just did that with a client and that worked really well. We did that with a client, we got results, but actually what was their end feeling? I think as we're now starting to understand that side of the fence, that is dictating how people are changing their companies. They're changing, when I started, it was, your best salespeople on the front line and you were bang, bang, bang. And it was quite, focused is probably a nice word to say.
Hard sales, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and actually you thrive by the numbers. If I listen to a lot of business owners today, of course they want the numbers, but what that is now carried off with is a covering of service and actually a pride in delivering service.
That's the key, isn't it? Because you're quite right. Do you remember I think it was you and I were talking to him, Peter Rollings, ex of obviously Marsh and Parsons, and he was talking about one of the old Sunday Times ones, and he was saying, look, every agent in here kind of deserves to be here in terms of the numbers, because they're all turning out great numbers. But here's the thing, the one he was really pleased on was winning the customer satisfaction thing 3 years in a row, because he says if you can do the numbers and you can get client sentiment right as well, you've got a long-term business there.
A lot of it was burn and churn, let's be honest with you. And you look at it, you got things like the Esther's coming along and things like that, where the focus is very much on how you perform, and where you see yourself, pride in Google reviews, and obviously I've done an awful lot on that, and all of the other platforms that are out there that facilitate, even down to social media now. Nobody wants to be seen as the bad egg in that environment, but actually it's a skill. It's another skill that probably needs teaching, and people find a long way to find their feet in that, really. And again, so when you look at the metrics that power that, for me, it's fascinating. And I think
cool. Well, look, I don't know, I've only got you for a little bit longer, but let me just talk about, you mentioned there, somebody is setting up an agency tomorrow. Obviously, you've got a huge amount of members, but you're obviously looking for more. Why should they be a member of Property Mart? What do you think is the main benefits in an elevator fashion of why they should get involved?
I think we have the ability for it all to be in one home. So I think the sense of belonging is probably a very, very powerful thing. That goes back to the old Stone Age days. We want to be part of the tribe.
Yeah.
And that's great. But if all that tribe are woodcutters and you're there selling houses, that's not necessarily going to be the right environment. So equally, I think the beauty is we have a mix of members from small, medium to large. Everybody has different advice. And so bringing new people into the industry, by the time you bring them to the meetings, you start them on the qualifications path and the learning environment, and also the support courses, all of which are free. You can almost take somebody from having no industry experience whatsoever, and take them through an accelerated journey, so by the time they come out the other end, they're pretty much ready to go. We also then have regional representatives and executives that selfishly, at their own time, will help and support new people into the regions and help them develop their business, even in direct competition to themselves. I think is phenomenal. And I think our executives and reps are phenomenal advocates, really, and they selfishly give themselves over to that. And I'm going to support that even more. I'm going to give them much more ability. They're having a direct secretarial PA support now from Auburn House that will manage and help other members if they don't want to speak to Auburn House, but they maybe want to speak to somebody more locally that understands the local issues. Our local executives and representatives will now have a lot more ability to be able to help, give that support and advice, and also direct people to the right places to get it. So we'll have a frontline local regional option. Equally, obviously, we've got the national courses and everything else that falls through on top of that, really. So it's an all-in-one solution, really, Simon.
That's lovely, isn't it? One-stop shop for all your
commercial gain. It's a membership organisation, so we're about the members, and it's like the last pandemic we've just been through. We were able to throw money in non-commercial funding into support services for members to ensure when they needed it, it was there.
Great. Second last question, then, mate. What if three things you'd like to achieve?
I'm going to go back to my reputation, stability, and results. Really, they are the three areas that probably ring the most for me, Simon. To be honest,
right.
And I think everything that I'm looking with the support of the board to do is aimed at improving ourselves and scoring in those three metric areas, really.
And if you let those drive you won't go far wrong, is your
absolutely. And I'm going to use those to drive our strategic direction, really. The board set out, our chair Nikki set out strategic direction, and it's my job to deliver on there. And I'll use these three core components as part of my sense check along the route, really.
Excellent. And once you've left, many years from now, I don't know if there is is there a statute of limitations on how long you can stay? But anyway, let's say you leave in 20 years' time. What would you like to think they would say about your time in charge, people?
Listen, I think however you look at it, in this position is always a position where you probably can never win anyway. Let's be quite honest with you. I'm really aware for that. I've got big, broad shoulders. Listen, from my point of view, it's pride in myself of what I've managed to achieve. Everybody's viewpoint is different, and I respect that. I'm hoping everybody will think, God, he's done a good job in the time he's been there. He's set us on the path that we need to do, and he's been able to be more inclusive. I want the people that aren't Property Mart members to engage. I want to talk to them. I want to understand what it is, because I think actually for a lot of those people, once they understand what it's like to be in the camp and properly in the camp, then they probably see things in a very different light, really.
Yeah. And of course, if they don't agree with you, knowing that you are a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu or whatever it is, you can always, that's nice to have in, if it's not going right at the boardroom, you can pull that out, can't you?
It's the style of management, Simon. As I said earlier on, you need to be flexible in your management choice. And I think the first option is always consult.
Yeah, but you can bring the pain if you have to.
Well, I always like to have a second string.
By the way, yeah, thank you for you say you got broad shoulders, so do I. Yeah, that's when you said all these tools coming into the industry. I thought you were referring to me, but I let it slip. Nath, I think that's lovely to hear about it. I mean, as I said, I think it's just a fantastic tie-up for the organisation and for you as an opportunity. So obviously wish you the very best with it. I'd love you to come back and talk to us about those plans when you've got them, you know, a bit more nailed out, as well as part of that communication point.
Absolute pleasure. Look forward to it. Thank you, Simon.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Too.
Bye.